Well, good evening, good evening, good evening, and thank you so much to all of you who have joined. Welcome to the second in a series. We are here to celebrate the work that has been done in voting rights. We are here to get ourselves ready to do more work. And what better way to prepare ourselves for work than in the same way that folks have been doing since the civil rights movement started in 1619. So I'm so happy that you're here tonight. We have a wonderful program for you. I'm going to start with one of my favorite songs. Sing along with me. Woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. Well, I woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. Woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. I woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Sing it again. Well, I woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. I woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. I woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. I am singing and praying with my mind, singing with me, say, stayed on freedom. Singing and praying with my mind, stayed on freedom. I'm singing and praying with my mind, stayed on freedom. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. You gotta walk, walk, you gotta walk, walk, you gotta walk, walk up with your mind on freedom. Walk, walk, you gotta walk, walk, you gotta walk, walk up with your mind on freedom. Whoa, hey, walk, 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 and then you'll talk, talk, and then you'll talk, talk, you're gonna talk, talk up with your mind on freedom. Talk, talk, you gotta talk, talk, you gotta talk, talk up with your mind on freedom. Whoa, whoa, talk, 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 talk. Oh, yeah, yeah, I got my mind stayed on freedom. Oh, got my mind stayed on freedom. Walk, 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 walk. Well, we're singing and marching with our minds. Yeah, they are stayed on freedom. Singing and marching with our minds. Stayed on freedom. We are singing and marching with our minds. Stayed on freedom. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Oh, well, I woke up this morning with my mind. Clap along with me. Stayed on freedom. I woke up this morning with my mind. I stayed on freedom. I woke up this morning with my mind. Stayed on freedom. Hallelujah, 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 oh, hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. I need somebody here to say hallelujah. Say the word. Hallelujah, hallelujah. It's a very big word in the African American community. It's a word that has been celebrated for years. Hallelujah is a word that people say and sing to celebrate where they've come from, celebrate the triumphs they've made. It's a word also that they sing in aspiration of what will become. And tonight we are going to celebrate three very powerful women, three leaders, three generations. So we're going to get ourselves together and we're going to be singing. You know, people often say, how in heaven's name did people get through the civil rights movement? The bus boycott went 382 days. People have been working for decade after decade. How did they make it through? Well, large part, they made it through because they made it through together. And they made it through together by singing. Ring, oh, freedom, oh, freedom, oh, freedom over me. And before I be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave, and I'll fight for my right to be free. They sang, well, no segregation, no segregation, hey, no segregation over me. Hey, and before I be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free. No more violence, no more violence, well, no more violence over me, yeah. And before I be a slave, I'd be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free. You know, during the civil rights movement that was the Underground Railroad, people sang in secret code. And in those days when they sang, I'll go home, they weren't just talking about going to heaven, although both home and heaven meant in secret code a place where you could go to be free. And they said, there'll be glory, there'll be glory, there'll be glory over me, yeah. And before I be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave, and I'll fight for my right to be free. Oh, freedom, sing it with me now. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom, oh, freedom over me, yeah. And before I be a slave, I'd be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free. Yes, before I'd be a slave, I'd be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free and be free. And before I'd be a slave, I'd be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free. And I'll fight for my rights to be free. Welcome, welcome as we gather here tonight for our second in the series of Voting Rights, The Struggle Continues. This is a song that people sang as they walked. They sang in those mass meetings. This is one of those songs we sing on the bus all the time as we travel, going to those sites where our civil rights pioneers paved the way. Guide my feet while I run this race. We're here tonight to hear the stories and the wisdom of folks who have been running the race for quite a while. Guide my feet while I run this race. Guide my feet while I run this race. Oh, guide my feet while I run this race. hold my hand. We're going to walk it together. Hold my hand every day with each other while I run this race. I need you now to hold my hand, hey, hey, while I run this race. Oh, won't you hold my hand, hey, while I run this race, 'cause I don't want to run this race in vain. Stand with me, stand with me, while I run this race. I need you to stand by me. Oh, while I run this race. Oh, won't you stand by me while I run this race, 'cause I don't want to run this race in vain. Well, I don't want to run this race in vain. Sing it one more time. Well, I don't want to run this race in vain. This joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me. Oh, this joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me. Well, this joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me. Well, the world didn't give it, so the world can't take it away. This courage that I have, the world didn't give it to me. Oh, this courage that I have, the world didn't give it to me. Well, this courage that I have, the world didn't give it to me. Well, the world didn't give it, so the world can't take it away. Oh, the world didn't give it, so the world can't take it away. The world didn't give it, so the world can't take it away. We have seen so many examples of folks all around the nation and in other countries who are saying that we are finding the courage to stand up, to speak up, to march, to work, to support. And so we gather tonight. We gather to celebrate the voting rights that we have and to make sure that the world doesn't take those away. We have a wonderful program for you tonight. And it is my joy at this time to introduce our program host for tonight. She is a dear friend of mine. We've known each other for years and years and years. She serves as the Congregational Life Consultant for the Unitarian Universalist Association's Central, East, and Southern regions. Hope Johnson is Minister Emerita at the UU Congregation of Central Nassau. That is located in Garden City. She served there for 15 years. And previously, she served as the Minister of Spiritual Life at the First Unitarian Church of Brooklyn, New York. She also served as the Director of Religious Education at the First Unitarian Church of Brooklyn, New York. I met her years ago at a concert or a rally somewhere. And as I said, Hope is not only a friend of mine, but she is one of the founders of the Living Legacy Project and actually served as our very first president. And she's actually the reason that I became part of Living Legacy. It was her invitation that got me on the bus the first time. And now I serve as co-president with my partner, Jan Snegas, and I have Hope to thank for leaving a legacy for us to come into as we continue the work of that great organization. So it is with deep gratitude and an abundance of joy that I introduce to you tonight our host for the evening, our program host, Reverend Dr. Hope Johnson.
Thank you, Reggie. Thank you so much. Welcome all. Welcome to the second session of our monthly online series. The focus is on voting rights. The stakes are so very high. The Living Legacy Project is committed to offering these sessions through Election Day 2020. Your presence matters. Your participation matters. Thank you for joining us this evening. The Living Legacy Project is committed to exploring what we've gleaned from the voting rights movement of the 1950s and the 1960s, so that we can apply them to the current challenges that we face in these unprecedented times. It takes each and every one of us to do our part to work for voting rights. We are truly better together. Dear friends, this is long haul work that is at once both intergenerational and multi-generational. We're tired. Who expected it to take this long? And yet, the ancestors are there cheering us on as we seek to make a way out of no way, as they did. Friends, we have a legacy to live into. How can we sustain our efforts in creating effective change? One way is to recognize the power of working for change together. I am particularly excited that today's panel includes 3 panelists, each representing 3 different generations of voting rights activists. In just a moment, I will have the honor of inviting the Reverend Dr. Gordon Gibson, co-founder, trustee, and historian of the Living Legacy Project, to introduce each of our panelists to you. Before that, a word. In remembrance, Alice Walker, author and activist, reminds us that this is how change happens. So, it's a relay race, and we're very conscious of that our job really is to do our part of the race, and then we pass it on. And then someone picks it up, and it keeps going. And that is how it is. And we can do this with the consciousness that we may not get it, today, but there's always a tomorrow. Gordon?
Welcome. I am delighted to be working with a panel of 3 brilliant, interesting women. Let me begin by introducing Erika Bennett. If you read the New York Times thoroughly yesterday, you found in the story about the Mississippi legislature finally getting around to changing the state flag so that it drops the Confederate stars and bars. Down toward the end of that story, it said, Erika Bennett, a 27-year-old Mississippi native, was overwhelmed with emotions. Mississippi had some character decisions to make, and today we did, said Ms. Bennett, the executive director of Mississippi Votes, a voting rights organization. She noted how, after years of pushing, the balance suddenly had shifted in favor of those wanting to retire the flag to history. This is progress, she said, that no one thought we could make. So tonight, we look forward to hearing from Ms. Bennett more about what progress has been made and what more, in the eyes of a young Mississippian, needs to be done. Second panelist is Dr. Joyce Ladner. Dr. Ladner has been a civil rights activist since at least her teen years. For example, in 1963, while she was still a college student, she assisted Bayard Rustin in organizing the March on Washington. She earned her doctorate from Washington University in 1968, became a noted American sociologist, researcher, author of a number of books, professor at Howard University. She served as vice president for academic affairs before becoming interim president, 1994 to 95. And then Dr. Ellie Damer, someone I've just been calling Mrs. Damer, and I've discovered that's not the full story. Dr. Damer has been a teacher, mother, housewife, and a long time advocate for voting rights. She worked on voting rights with her husband, Vernon Damer, and after his death in 1966, worked on her own and with other family members. She served as an elected election commissioner beginning in 1991 in Forest County, where she lives, and in 2019 was awarded the degree of Doctor of Humane Letters by the University of Southern Mississippi. And we just heard in preparing for the program tonight that last week she had a birthday, and wondered what the racket was outside. Well, the racket outside was a parade of people coming to wish her a happy 95th birthday. So we're looking forward to hearing not much from me, but a lot from these three very interesting, gifted people. I want to start by asking Ms. Bennett, what event or person first got you involved in civil rights and voting rights?
Thank you, Dr. Gibson. First, I also just want to recognize Dr. Ladner and Dr. Damer, and just say how excited I am to be in a conversation with these women who I've read about, and certainly their work has inspired a lot of what we've been able to do at Mississippi Votes. So I wanted to name that. I was 17 at Jackson State University when I recognized that there was something fundamentally wrong with the public education system, and not being able to ever see myself in history and the way that it was told in the history books. And I'm a fourth generation Jacksonian. I majored in physics and chemistry, and I thought that I was going to go to Jackson State and become a teacher afterwards. But there were some events that happened on campus related to sexual assault, misconduct, and dating violence that really got me involved in reproductive justice and reproductive health work. And that same summer that I was coming to college, there was also a shift and a conversation happening around Initiative 26, which was the personhood amendment that would really just take away women's rights to emergency contraception and birth control, et cetera. And I started to get into conversations with local organizations like Planned Parenthood and the Women's Reproductive Freedom Fund, who were leading the charge in making sure that people were registered to vote, and also making sure that people understood that reproductive health was a social justice issue. And so developing that language and talking to my peers about, at the very minimum, all we knew is that birth control was at stake and that we wanted to communicate that to our peers. But there was something about the connectivity between the issue and the ballot box that clicked for me about, if I could register X amount of young people at Jackson State University and X amount of young people at Tougaloo, we would have somewhat of a shift in the way that the outcome of that particular ballot initiative would be carried out. And truly, young people were at the core of how, the results of the ballot initiative turned out. So that was my first introduction into this civic engagement, civil rights world. My grandparents were part of the NAACP, and I used to spend a lot of my summers in Tylertown, Mississippi, in NAACP meetings, but with no understanding of what's happening and what's going on. It wasn't until something happened personally and around me that I was able to just see myself as part of the larger container of the movement.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, Dr. Ladner, how what initially moved you into your longtime involvement?
Emmett Till,
Mm.
the murder of 14-year-old Emmett Till in the Delta, Mississippi. Was my wake-up call. I was going on 12 years old, and I lived in Hattiesburg, Mississippi, in the southern part of the state. Emmett Till was in the Delta, but it terrorized me. I feared for my own life, as well as that of my father and brothers and the other boys I knew.
Yeah.
And vowed that one day, I didn't know how or when or where, but one day I was going to avenge his death, And so I dedicated my life to trying to right the wrongs in society.
Yeah. Thank you. And Dr. Damer, what initially engaged you with voting rights, civil rights?
I started helping my husband with voting rights. He was very active in getting people registered to vote. At that time, we had a head start about 12 yards away from the public road. And this is where he would pick up people to go and try to register and bring them back. They already had our tag number. He didn't want them to get that tag number and harass them like they were doing us. And as things moved on, we did pretty good until they consolidated all the schools in the county. They didn't tell the principal who to hire, but they told them who not to hire. And my name was on that list. I couldn't find work in Forest County or in the city of Hattiesburg. I finally found work in Richton. They needed a teacher over there real bad. And I was able to get into Richton city school system. And that's where I stayed 21 years in Richton. Richton school system was very good to me. I traveled 30 miles to and from work. Most time was just me and the Lord going, because there were riders from Hattiesburg. And I wanted to ask them, could I ride with them? But one of the teachers said, if they didn't want you to ride with them, they'd ask you to ride with them. Don't even ask them. So just me and the Lord made the journey. And we were very successful. I think I was late for work probably 3 times. I was always on time.
That is something. One of the things that has hit all of us, hit the nation in the last weeks, was the murder of George Floyd, and the realization of how many other deaths there had been at the hands of either police or those empowered by the police by inaction. How has that affected each of you? Ms. Bennett, has that given some of the energy you saw around the flag issue?
Yeah, so we have about 120 young people who are like really uniquely positioned to be part of the organizational work. Of course, there are young people across the state who are involved in different ways, but those 120 young people specifically were, you know, reaching out and urging us to do more. I think the difficult part of being a 501c3 is that, you know, sometimes there are some restraints and limitations on what you can do, but like we were able to show up in our personal capacities and resource our students for what they wanted to see done. And so it was because not only is the rest of the world in like this global pandemic mode, like there are so many things happening personally for the young people that we serve. And so 3 of them came to the office immediately after the uprising started, and we're organizing and we're saying, look, this is the moment where we need to really shift the conversation of what's happening in Mississippi and really move people to talk about not just the Confederate emblems that, you know, still haunt our state, but really urge people to get out and vote on election day as a tool and as a way to fight back. And so they organized this protest in solidarity with what's happening across the country and across the world. And it was a really interesting moment for me because I feel like I am still at a point where I'm doing so much learning, and the young people who are part of our programming are mostly Gen Z, Gen X, and there was just an opportunity for me to stand in the middle of generations, kind of. So I was organizing with elders who were trying to support what's happening in this new iteration of movement and organizing. And in a way, I'm also eavesdropping on what's happening with the next generation of leaders. And so it was just interesting to be able to learn from them. And I don't think that I've gotten a chance to really grieve in a real way because everything in Mississippi is so urgent, like y'all know. Yeah, since 2013, like this just keeps happening from Trayvon Martin until now. And it feels like finally a tide is turning, or, you know, people are having some real moments of reflection about who they are and how they've shown up or not shown up for folks who look like me. And it's also caused us to really read and reflect on who we are as a people too. So.
You know, Dr. Ledner, I know you've had some things to say about the Floyd murder and the aftermath. Intrigued to hear from you on this.
Yes, I wrote an op-ed for the Washington Post week before last, and it was about George Floyd, but also about civil rights protests then and now. And I recalled having been tear gassed and chased with a police dog in Jackson, Mississippi in the spring of 1961. Mm-hmm. When I was a student at Jackson State. Just as the tear gassing occurred down up 16th Street here at the White House, when the protesters were cleared for Trump to make a vanity walk to St. John's Church. And I talked about voter registration and how we fought for voter registration back then with very little success until after Mr. Damon and others filed a lawsuit against Theron Lynn, who was the voter registrar in our county, Forest County, and who didn't allow any African Americans to register. And then how voting rights, the rollback on voting rights is occurring now with redistricting and with all kinds of voter suppression activities that are occurring. And while I'm hopeful and optimistic and very excited about the large numbers of young people across racial ethnic lines, social class boundaries. I think we have to always be mindful, not mindful, but keep our focus on, it's a sustained effort. No generation, as Frantz Fanon, the author, once said, each generation must define its mission and fulfill it or betray it. So in the 1960s, that was my generation, and we fought very hard. Only, 60 years later, here we are again. And with the police brutality and murders that are occurring just as they did back then. So we have to redouble our efforts and find as many allies as possible. The other point I want to make is that, and as I stated this in the article, that the race problem does not belong to Black people. It was created by white people, and white people must take up the gauntlet and carry forth on it. I'm tired of people asking me, what are you going to do about this problem? It's not my problem. Okay.
Yes, it's important to identify where the problem lies.
Yes.
I remember many years ago, Ebony magazine published an entire issue on the white problem in America.
Yes, I remember that.
But I know, Dr. Damer, you and I have talked about your pleasure at seeing a number of younger people taking part, Black and white. Share some of that with us.
Okay, thank God for cameras, and I don't know how to use mine well. That camera said everything, and this has been going on. It seems like the darker they are, the worse the police hate them, Dr. Gordon. I don't know what it is about this dark skin that they don't seem to like well, and yet they'll go out and get tans to try to look like me. But I want to talk about two people that did a lot for voter registration in our community. Erling Beard and Mabel Fielder. Both of them have always been in the Black race. They went out to the courthouse and registered to vote. They didn't ask them if they were white or Black. They didn't put down whether they was white or Black. And they allowed those two people to register. Only thing they asked Erling Beard, why did you wait so long to come to register? He said, I had other things on my mind, but register more than one of them. They thought that was so funny. And they taped all of that. Then we went to the Fifth Circuit Court in New Orleans, where they found out they discriminated against people because they were Black. And those two people had been in the Black race all of their lives. They the one really opened up the voter registration in Hattiesburg here. Another thing I would like to talk about, during Ronald Damer's time, as things began to get serious, we began to get threats. And it was dangerous for both of us to sleep at the same time. I would sleep the first part of the night. I would go to bed as soon as I could, and then I'd get up at 12 and get fully dressed, and because I couldn't go back to sleep. Then he would sleep today, like. And we did this in the latter part of 1964. By 1965, that Christmas time, we stopped getting threats. So we stopped sleeping this year. Then January the 10th is when they called us that night. The Klansmen were shooting in the house. They set all the doors on fire, except the basement door. We couldn't get to the basement door because the fire was in the hallway. They were shooting in the house. The evil house was set afire. And by that time, I yelled for Vernon to get up. I believe they got us this time. We jumped up before. He began to return the fire. And he was hollering to yelling to me, trying to get the children out while I hold them out. I went to my daughter's bedroom to get her and bring her by a window. Let me back up a little bit. We ran out of money for building a house. So it was the most blessed thing ever happened to us. We had metal windows on the front with a screen and the window all made in one metal piece. And the space in between, there wasn't no way Vernon and I could have got through it. So we didn't have enough money. We put wooden windows on the back of the house because we was going to place them soon as we finished picking cotton in January anyway. That was the most blessed thing ever happened. I wanted to get Betty to put her out the window. She wasn't where her father was. Betty was screaming to the top of her voice, Lord have mercy, we're going to get burned up in this house alive. God will hear a child's prayer. He heard Betty's prayer. They thought it was Vernon screaming. It was Betty screaming for the Lord have mercy on them. By the time I could get the window up, it fell back down. I couldn't get it up to save my life. I hit this window so hard, I knocked that bottom sash out. By that time, Vernon was handing Betty out the window to me, and he came out the same window. We went right down back of the house to the barn to get out of the light because we were afraid they'd come around and shoot us. His 84-year-old aunt was up there in the stove, and the stove was on blaze. They said hit both of them at the same time, said both of them fire at the same time. And I yelled to her, said, Lord have mercy, and rain is burning up in that stove. And she'd already made it to the woods. She was in a safe place. Harold dashed under the carport and got the pickup truck. The car was already on fire, couldn't get it. He got the pickup truck out there. We left keys and things at that time. It was safe to leave keys in car. And he dashed under there and got the pickup truck to go out and call the fire department and tell us something what had happened. The fire department came, Harold said, they stood around there and talked, made out they couldn't get in the water. He pushed the fence down where they go down and get water out of a pond, and they stayed until the house burned down. When they got back with the water, it was too late. And from that on, things just wasn't so good with me, but the Lord has been with me, and he's been good to me. He let me see things happen that I thought I'd never see, Dr. God. I never thought they'd put Vernon Dame on Main Street down there, that statue. I never thought I'd live to see that. In fact, I never thought they'd put him out down there. I thought they might put him over there in Vernon Dame Park, the park they named for him, but not on Main Street. And there he stands on Main Street for everybody to see him. And it was as many white there as it was black there. Mississippi has changed.
A lot of people listening in on this may not know that last January, Forest County, Mississippi dedicated a statue to Vernon Damer, and it has across the base the words that he apparently often said, if you don't vote, you don't count. That is a huge change from the Klan attacking your house, burning it down,
Yes.
causing his death back in 1966. So what, you've commented to me that in some of the recent events, you've seen a lot of young people, black and white.
Yes.
Is this a big change?
Oh, yes, they've changed. The young person is really because of that statue being down there. She said to her father, you say he's a good man, why don't you all do something for him? And this is a young white person that said that. Now, these last words he said, if you don't vote, you don't count. This is probably the last thing he said. A reporter came in from Hattiesburg, America, and asked him what voting that important to him. And he was telling him then, if you don't vote, you don't count in this society. And it wasn't too long that they moved us from that room in front of the nurse's desk. They said it was cooler over there because the burn was so bad on him. And they only had the bottle of oxygen on him. And then by the time he died, they brought the tent. It was too late then.
let me shift to something else.
Okay.
And people ask, how, what do we need to do? How can we be involved? And there is so much going on. Sometimes it's confusing. It feels as though there are just too many options. But the three of you have been deeply involved, two of you for a very long time, and Ms. Bennett for a good part of her life. So some advice from each of you on where you see it being worthwhile to put energy, put financial resources these days, these moments we're living in right now.
Well, I think we need to let everybody have their own opinion about anything. First of all, we need to respect everybody. If we can learn to respect everybody and let everybody have their own opinion about things, I don't have to fall out with you because you don't think like I think, or you don't see things like I see them there. I think everybody should be able to respect each other. And then if we could learn to respect each other, maybe we could learn to love each other. I can't hear you, God. What happened now? I can hear him.
Yeah, Dr. Ladner, I'd like for you to chime in here. You raised the very good point that those who are the locus of the greatest problems need to speak to it, which I certainly find is true. Can you add on to that a bit?
Yes. Before I do, I wanted to say that the roots of my activism also began with Eileen Beard, who was Vernon Damer's sister. Eileen Beard was my mother's best friend and a member of our church. And she asked our mother when we were 12 and 13 if we could go to Jackson, Mississippi with her and her brother Vernon and Clyde Kennard, who's another martyr in the movement, to Jackson to statewide NAACP meeting. And we were so excited about it. And we little kids just sat in that car and listened to Mr. Damer and his sister Eileen Beard and her husband Kenneth and Clyde Kennard talk about Negro rights. I just could not imagine such an opportunity that I had. Anyway, that's an important connection to make. And Mr. Damer then established the Hattiesburg Youth Chapter of the NAACP that we joined as well, where we met Medgar Evers and became friends with him. I think that I agree with Mrs. Damer, Dr. Damer, that the dogmatic way in which everyone is expected to follow the line and step behind each other and we're so divided in this country now that it's difficult to talk to people who don't have your views. And if you talk to them, there's no way either view is likely to persuade the other to any common position. One of the things I'm looking forward to with the election is that, I'm going to work very, very hard for Joe Biden to win, because I think he'll restore some of this sense of normalcy to the society, and that we will get back to a sense of integrity and ethics and morality. And we'll all be able to take a large, hot bath and say that, wow, we're over that stench that's pervaded the society, for the last 3.5 years. And I'm serious about that, because no matter what your political affiliation, you have to admit that we're going through some very, very tough times when we're pitted against each other, when we, the concept of a universality of the human being and the human spirit, just being assailed, and you have to be extra strong in order to continue to believe in what you believe in, hope that one day your views will prevail, So I'm I'm 76 now, and I never imagined that at my age that we would still be fighting for voting rights, and the voter suppression today is so much more sophisticated than it was in the 60s. Back then, when I tried to register 3 times, and each time I flunked the literacy test, even though I was a senior at Tougaloo College. I was deemed illiterate by Theron Lynn, the county registrar. Just an aside, one of the questions was to interpret an article of the Constitution, U.S. Constitution. And since I'd failed 3 times, on the 3rd time, I just decided that on that same question, what are the duties of a good citizen? I just wrote that a good citizen is one who obeys just laws and disobeys unjust laws. And I was definitely never to go in there again to try to register to vote. But you do get fed up and tired. And I think that what we see out on the streets today, a lot of young people, and people of all ages, but the young people are saying no to all these crushing student loans and to the job market and to COVID-19 and the inequality. I mean, just enormous inequality that exists. The few billionaires and the rest of us. And I think that we have to. I feel that my job is to throw my weight behind these young people and to follow them, because they really are taking over for their generation and they are leading.
They are doing some exciting things. Very, Ms. Bennett, you want to come in on this?
Yeah. Oh man, there are so many ways to, stay involved and get involved with what's happening across the country and in Mississippi. So I think that, a lot of people are looking at us right now because of what just happened with the flag. But I want to say that, the flag doesn't and won't fully fund education. The flag won't improve our healthcare system. It won't redistribute wealth. It won't fix the structural changes that need to shift. But what the flag does do, what the removal of the flag does do, is create space for opportunity for us to have conversation and continue to push the envelope and continue to be in the field. And if we've never seen winning before, we've got a taste of it now. And I think that for me and my team and the young people that are organizing with us, the goal here is for us to stay curious and to always question everything, and to fight. And so we've been very honest about what we know and what we don't know. We've been sitting at the feet of our elders, learning what happened with SNCC and what's happening in the NAACP so that we can build a stronger movement. It's all about sustainability. I heard somebody talk about intergenerational organizing and intergenerational movement building. And for us, it is literally just that. We don't take lightly that we still have Hollis Watkins walking around and teaching the importance and the fundamentals of organizing. We don't take lightly that Frankie Adams, it's like we don't take for granted the resources at our disposal. And I think a lot of times folks think that young folks are apathetic. But I think what's happening right now is that young people are saying, no, we're going to vote in November, and we also going to come to the legislature, and we're also going to push you to move the policies that we see need to be shifted in Mississippi and across the country, particularly around voting rights. So I think that this moment, this time has made room for so many of us to get curious about, why aren't we fully funding education but funding the police department? That's weird. So I'm excited about listening to the elders and also putting young people who are younger than me at the core of our movement, because those are the ideas and that's the energy that's gonna move us. I think it was Ella Baker that said the thing that's happening with young people is that they're fearless where we are afraid. And even in my late 20s, there are some things that I am still I'm learning from young people in Gen Z about how I can be a better organizer, how I can push the needle at the tables that I get a chance to sit at. So I'm really excited that this moment is occurring, but I don't want us to sleep on the fact that we still got work to do. Like, we can clap and hoorah today, but white people don't get a cookie for passing this piece of legislation. They don't get a ticket to the cookout for doing what's right, because they should have done that a long time ago. And so what we're saying now is that we're going to run for office if you're silent about our issues. We're going to run against you. We're going to be the political data manager. We're going to be the leaders of organizations. We're going to lead our own GOTV work. And so I think that is where, and that is how the tide has been shifting, and that is where the power is. It's in the hands of the young folks who are listening to their elders.
I'm pleased that you mentioned Hollis Watkins, old friend. And Hollis, like Joyce Ladner, is among those the Damers helped understand what the issues were and what the solutions might be. This intergenerational approach really is important. We have some questions. Kathy Goldwater asks each of you, what keeps your spirits up when this fight for rights and for racial justice has gone on so long, centuries?
It's in my DNA. That's all I can say. It's that each morning, get up and rest a little and start fighting all over again. I don't think I could stop if I wanted to.
Well, I'm glad both that you can and that you want to. Keep it up. Dr.
I believe in prayer. I believe prayer would change things. Mississippi State and Ole Miss, it's because of that flag being gone.
Right.
When they said they were going to play them and bring that money in there to them, to the university, that flag had to go.
Right.
And with the flag going, it's going to bring in better jobs. And better jobs then will create a better employment for everybody. The white people need better jobs too. All of them are not wealthy. There's some poor white people in Mississippi. They need good jobs just like we need good jobs.
Mm-hmm. What keeps your spirits up?
I wanted to name that about the Mississippi State and Ole Miss situation. The reason that they felt pressure to do what they're doing and make public statements is because young Black people made demands on those universities about not playing football there, and they were writing letters and saying this is what's gonna happen if, so I want to be clear about all of that too. Like, the power of young Black people is really prevalent in this moment, and we're tapping into that. So I wanted to lift that up. What's keeping me, man, so many things. I feel like for a while, like I said, my grandparents were heavily involved in their community and the NAACP and like local organizing without the language for organizing. My grandpa used to feed people in community with his garden and all of that good stuff. So I think part of the way that I organize is connected to family, and it's connected to the way that I love people, is connected to the way that I was brought up. And I think that many of us, without, these big fancy titles or whatever, are community organizers and have been organizing without understanding that that is what we've been up to the whole entire time. And I think it's the way that my community takes care of one another, the way that young people trust me, the way that my elders believe in me, and the demand of my life in this moment, the understanding of that demand keeps me very hopeful. And and it keeps me very inspired that like something is gonna change in my lifetime. And it won't happen after I'm gone. Some things are gonna happen in the now. And I think that's what's exciting for me.
Let me go to a question from Dick Bailey that was directed specifically to Dr. Ladner. He says, you alluded to the more sophisticated ways the vote is being suppressed today. Would you please lift up some of the lesser known ones beyond reducing the number of polling places and presenting obstacles to mail-in voting? Thank you in advance for your response. So Dr. Ladner, would you weigh in on that?
The last election, presidential election, the flyers went out in black communities. I lived in Florida at the time. The flyer stated that election was going to be on a day after the, let's assume it's November 4th. It said election is on November 5th. Just from very simple-minded things that are done. The robocalls. One call was from Martin Luther King's niece, and she called about how all the candidates really wanted to take aborted babies and burn them up, or some just horrible things that would go to make any African American person say, if they don't know any better, say, "Oh no, that's terrible. I would never vote for someone who did that." But you know, listen to Stacey Abrams sometimes talk about the myriad ways in which the vote is suppressed, when she talks about her organization, Fair Fight, that works on voter suppression. You know, of course, there's the redistricting, gerrymandering. There are, you know, shutting down polling places. I think there was 3 polling places in Milwaukee, and was it one in a huge section of Atlanta where people had to wait in line until after 11 o'clock at night to vote. Those are just some of the things. I am a cynic. I believe that the voting machines will be tampered with if it's possible. I think they should have people out there to audit the machines before the voting starts. You know, but there are a lot of ways. Any given day, you can read about them in your newspaper. I wanted to mention a program that I'm aware of, but that is run by Derek Johnson, who is head of the National NAACP, and you know him from both of you from Jackson, Mississippi. But he has been working on, he and Dr. Al Yates out in Colorado, who used to be president of Colorado State, have an organization. I was looking for the website, but I couldn't find it. And it's very heavily based on research. And what they're doing is they're taking identifying rather, high intensity voters, people who are absolutely going to always vote, you know, and pairing them with 10 people who don't always vote, and getting in contact with them and nurturing them through the process. I mean, making sure that there are no obstacles that will keep them away from the polls on voting day. And they're targeting 6 states, and those states are Wisconsin, North Carolina, Florida, Georgia, Pennsylvania, and Michigan, and they may bring Texas and South Carolina on as well. And what this will do is that will increase the percentage of votes, just a small, very small amount, but enough, you know, to win the election. Let's see. That one person, high propensity voter, is to take responsibility for 10 low propensity voters. I think that's a good way in which to do it if people want to learn, to volunteer to do such things. And with that, Dr. Al Yates and Derek Johnson say that you can get 2 to 10 million Black voters out on election day.
Excellent. Well, we have just a couple of minutes here. Wanda Fisher writes, I spoke to my daughter's classes about civil rights several years ago. They were incredulous that white people were involved in the civil rights movement in the 1960s. Their school was 2 blocks from Reverend Reeb's church. Why is it so difficult to convince people that we white people were also involved? It's our problem as well. I suspect part of that answer is some of us, black and white, have not been knowing the stories. We've kept succeeding generations in the, ignorant of what happened. But others of you,
I agree with you. I think you have to tell, each generation has to take responsibility to tell the story to the young people. Tell it to your grandchildren and at a level at which they can understand. Go and speak at your children and grandchildren's school about it. I did that in my little 10-year-old grandson's school. And the kids thought I was from Mars. And I showed them a picture I took with Martin Luther King at Tougaloo College. And they said, but he's dead. And they looked at me like, aren't you supposed to be dead too?
Yes.
Dr. Ladner, what are you doing? I'm sorry.
No.
Okay. Well.
Yeah. Oh no, I was just gonna add, yeah, it's about telling the stories, yes. And it's also, I think the question was specifically about like, we white people were also involved, or this is also like a issue amongst the races. I just want to name that, it's not enough to just show up at the protest, right? It's not enough to just to take pictures or to stand in solidarity on a Facebook post. It's about what you do day in and day out to defy racism and to be an anti-racist every day in every facet of your life. It's not just enough to show up when it's convenient or to black out your social media pages in solidarity. Like, you actually have to be in the act of continuously fighting against this system that was created and built to leave people like us out. So like, I mean, yeah, that's part of it. Like, yes, we need to tell our stories, and also white folks have to be a little bit more active in getting your own people together, because I think there's a lot of people coming to the NAACP meetings or whatever and saying we need to do this, and it's like, yes, and also have a conversation with your cousin who's a racist. So that's that.
Right.
Yep. Well, I want to thank the three of you. You have kept me thoroughly engaged for the time that we've had. It's been a pleasure. Dr. Damer, Dr. Ladner, Ms. Bennett, you are accomplished people who have not finished accomplishing. And I think that's one of the lessons, that it's a lifelong work. We can't opt out at any certain point. At this point, I want to invite my friend Reggie Harris to come back and close out our evening and lead us into the next, what comes next. Reggie?
Thank you, Gordon. And thank you all. Three very powerful witnesses to what can be done and what is being done. And as we leave tonight, we think again of all the words that have been uttered tonight, words taken to our hearts and into our heads as we try to restructure and reorient ourselves for the work ahead. We will not rest until the storm is over. And the storm is clearly not over. But we will not lay the burden down. So it's on each of us to make a list, make a target for things that we are going to do, and then to surround each other with support and love. And thank each and every one of you for joining us. At the end of this program, we invite you into a chat room. If you want to have further discussion on this, there is an email that is in the chat and also on your email confirmation that you can join us in another Zoom room and we'll do a little bit of talking about this. But before we talk, we need to sing. So this song I leave with you, we're going to be singing this for a long time, way past November, because November is only the first target. After November, we have a whole bunch more work to do. So I leave you with this song and thank you again for joining. Please sing along. We will not rest till the storm is over. We will not lay this burden down. We will keep each other strong. We will love and carry on till we stand all together on solid ground. We will not rest till the storm is over. We will not lay this burden down. We will keep each other strong. We will love and carry on till we stand all together on solid ground. It's been a long, hard journey on a winding road. So many have gone before us. They carried a heavy load, but they went there singing as they made their way. Now in their footsteps we follow as we work today. We will not rest till the storm is over. Yeah, we will not lay this burden down. Well, we will keep each other strong. We will love and carry on till we stand all together on solid ground. We will not rest till the storm is over. Yeah, we will not lay this burden down. Well, we will keep each other strong. We will love and carry on till we stand all together on solid ground. Till we stand all together on solid ground. Till we stand all together on solid ground. Stay safe and stay busy. Thank you so much.